Hello, everyone. Today's guest is someone whose middle name says it all. Joy is literally the middle of everything she does. And friends, take it from a fellow joy advocate. I don't say that lightly. Jenifer Joy Madden is a journalist, health educator, a mom of three, and the founder of Durable Human, a movement and message that encourages all of us to reclaim our natural human capacities in an age of overload and over automation. She spent her life researching, writing, and teaching how we can thrive, not just survive, in the midst of constant technological change. And the truth is, her work is more needed now than ever before. In a world where burnout has become a badge of honor and disconnection is an epidemic, Jenifer brings us back to the basics, back to what makes us durably human. Think curiosity, movement, relationships, resilience, mindfulness, and the connection we all so crave. The way she speaks to these truths feels like a deep exhale for the nervous system. What I love about Jenifer is how she integrates both data and depth. She's deeply informed and deeply intuitive. You'll hear that in this conversation. She just doesn't want you to survive in the digital age. She is so focused on us remembering who we are in spite of it. This episode is about reclaiming the simplicity of the human experience. And Jenifer shows us that it's not only possible, it's essential, folks. So lean in with me, take a deep breath, and get ready to fall back in love with being human. Here's my conversation with the luminous, the ever fabulous Jenifer Joy Madden. Hello, Jenifer.
Hello, Brittany. Wow. Love that introduction. It's beautiful. Thank you. I love your writing.
It's so fun. Well, you and I share when you and I first connected, we had like, oh, me too. Oh, me too. So it's I differentiate with Brittany Joy Lund, and you middle name Joy. You have a journalism background that was very robust and quite noteworthy, and you have three kiddos that you raised. So I see you,
I
and
see
you
you and hear you too.
Thank you. And you are so passionate about what I am really going full force in is let's get back to humaning. This is a word I call it. Let's get back to humaning. Let's get back to focusing on what it is that is so stunning about the human experience that AI can't overtake, that technology can't overtake or override. Let's get back to the source of who we are that makes us the mighty, the majestic, the masterful that we're just not um, intimately engaging with right now.
Absolutely. You're right. And I think it's a matter of taking stock and actually assessing what is it about us that makes us different from AI. I used to talk about alt brains being Google and GPS. And what I meant was we could simply transfer our responsibility and our thinking to an external object. And now with artificial intelligence, it's just, I don't know, it's exponentially more easy actually to actually give your brain over to that because it's has the training has been very good and the models are really able to take a lot of, do our functions a little bit better. And so we start to defer more and more, and we have to have perspective on that. And remember, there are a lot of things that AI can't do that we can, and it's good for us to know what our attributes are.
Well,
And so,
I mean,
yeah,
it's so tempting and so scintillating, and it's so easy to just give it all over to, we talk about I call it the creep, the digital creep. Now we have Alexa in our home and she helps us remember. I was at a friend's house last night and the person asked what was the age of an actor. We don't use our brains, we just outsource it, as you're saying. And we think, I don't need to know. I don't need to think about that. I don't need to go back in the data scroll and give a guess, even, and whatever. You know, we don't memorize phone numbers anymore. We don't do those little things that are so important. But what do you say to people about the humaning process, the durability of self when it's just so easy? It's so easy. It's easy to do AI. It's easy to automate. It's easy to turn on the computer and be entertained.
Yes, that's right. But we also have to remember what we've got. And we've got things like um, intuition that they don't have yet. And we have curiosity, we have compassion, we have generosity. So we have to really take a step back and look and see what does make us special and to really cherish that and be proud of it and to keep it strong and durable. So my whole mantra is about being durable as opposed to being resilient. So being resilient is great, came up a lot during COVID, and it means being knocked down and getting back up again. But we've gotten to the point where we have to stay durable, body, mind, and relationships to be able to keep moving forward and to take the jolts and keep upright and to be conscious about our minds, our bodies, and how to take care of them so that they're strong and capable. And that's why we have to be aware of ourselves in relation to our technology, such as our physical self. Our eyesight can be greatly affected by how we use technology. And so we have to understand the strategies to help our eyesight stay viable. And I can get into some of those, but
Yeah, for sure.
one of them is to look away from the screen every 20 minutes for 20 seconds at something more than 20 feet away. What that does is it keeps exercising your near and your far vision. So simple, but it's good if you look out a window, like I'm looking at a window right now, looking at green. That also soothes the soul. So you can actually 10x these little practices to maintain your humanity. And that's just one physical aspect of it.
Okay, so I was listening to a podcast probably 3, 4, 5 months ago when I was about physical strength, and it was what's his name, Gary Brecka, and he talks about like 10x your human. And one
Mhm.
of the things he really says is the contrast of experiences, like going in the hot and going in the cold, is really important. But I want to go on what you just said. He says it's called sun gazing, and you go outside and you watch the sun rise, and you pick a point, and that all that's happening in your brain when you're doing something, and your eyes when you're doing something as simple as watching the sun come up in the sky. Do you know about this? Have you heard about this?
No, I don't. My intuition says that it makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
we're chronological creatures. We live by, you know, sometimes I like to say the only windows some people see are made by Microsoft. I mean, it's very important that we connect with the outside and get out there. So I'm sure he's got something. I'm sure that that's a leveling, an emotionally leveling, calming process because I love to see the sunrise too.
Right. And barefooting. I mean, that's another way where they talk about something as simple as walking outside with no shoes on, and you're getting the resonance, the Schumann resonance from the earth is coming up into your system, and you're feeling that connection. So yes, this is what I love about what you bring in your conversation, is that we have to really almost place an homage,
Mhm.
a celebration to all the things that make us who we are, versus just taking the easy road and outsourcing um our lives. Because what'd you say in the beginning, an alt world?
Alt brain.
Alt
We
brain.
have alt brains. We can just flip, choot choot, and then go into, just outsource it. And that's our alt brain. Like GPS. Honestly, I mean, there are these cab drivers in London who drove these black cabs, and they had all the routes, the crazy routes of London in their heads. And so they had really large parts of their brain that deal with logistics, the hippocampus. And studies show that since GPS has come in, those, our brain and their brains have shrunk. And so it's just kind of being aware of what happens to our human capabilities if we do outsource too much. And that's hard. It's really hard. And I try it myself. I mean, I've recommended take the GPS somewhere, not too far away, and then try to use your memory to get home. So as you're driving, you're using the GPS, but you're also looking at landmarks. That's how we figure out where we are. And so on the way back, we're now, going backwards, trying to find those landmarks, and that exercises our hippocampus. So to try to remember to do that, people do brain games and they do puzzles all the time. So that's just an easy way to do it in the car where you don't have to pull up something and play some sort of game. Just do it yourself.
It's life. I remember as a child, I still could tell you my phone number at my house when I was a kid. 309-682
It's
9222.
drilled in there.
It's drilled in there. I can tell you all my family members' phone numbers. My kids have my phone number memorized for safety, but it's something that was such a given in our childhood of that you just use your brain to log data. And I remember being back to what you said about the taxis, the black cars in London. When I was in New York, living in New York, I would have some really great conversations with the taxi drivers about the tests they had to take just to be able to pass to get their medallion. And they had to memorize the entire city, all the streets. They had to know every street.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me. And yet we are like, oh yeah, we'll just let GPS do that. I understand the digital creep though. It's like ease of use. Why do I have to memorize that when I can outsource it? What do you say to people that are, it's that bright, shiny object syndrome. They're drawn to the quote unquote benefit of it. If you're doing AI to make expand your time as a one-man band running a business, there's a blessing there. But what's the balance? What's the witness? What's the loss that's coming with that? What's the trade-off?
Yeah. I think we're talking about two different sets of people, two cohorts. That would be adults that can have jobs and have fully formed prefrontal cortices in their brains. And then we have children and they're still forming. And I have come to believe that it's helpful in adulthood to use AI tools that are tools, and to keep perspective on what they are, remaining conscious of the product. There can be mistakes in the product. You have to check it. And we should be smart enough and use our reasoning enough that we can check it, make sure it's okay. I mean, I have to admit, I'm using a video editing AI product that's really helpful. And especially when it can translate and do all that stuff. It's amazing. But I think when we're talking about the other cohort, which is children, that parents have to really, really respect the building of the foundation of these kids' minds. We have talked in the past about reading, writing, and arithmetic. They should know the basics of that. They should have some rudimentary understanding of that. That has been the foundation of what has been school. It's been drilled into their heads. Right after you finish memorizing all those numbers, you were going into your times tables and some other things and phonics and stuff like that. And you're learning how to write a paragraph from start to finish. And you start with the lead sentence, and it's hard and it takes time. But then you get it in your head and you've got it. And I think that not only are you learning to read, write, and arithmetic, you're also learning reasoning. So that's when you get into middle school. Then they're starting to about, well, what does this mean? What does this passage mean? And they're starting to have deep thinking. Well, starting AI too soon with children may bypass that essential learning. And that's why parenting is so challenging right now, because ed tech products are entering the classroom without really being tested. And the threat is that they may bypass this process of forming foundations in these various aspects that we need to learn to be able to be a thinking and productive human being as an adult.
Well, when you said that, I really got a strong image of when I was a little girl, and I would write a lot. I was a prolific little writer. I had little papers stapled together, and I would write books. And I mean, I have so many books in my head. I have children's books, I have books for teens, I have books for me. When I was little, it was picture books. And I've always been this, I'm a book writer in my head. And I think about that. When I was writing books, I always got, oh my gosh, you're such a great creative writer. You write so well. And I've gotten that reinforcement throughout my entire life. People love receiving cards from me and notes because I have a way with words. I love the way words can work together to create something, paint a picture. And the same with art. When kids do art, they get that feedback of, oh, you're so. And I remember my dad as a little girl, he was just he was like, this is so great. And what is that? And then I'd have to explain it, even though he was, couldn't tell. And I think there's that whole experience of the feedback system. And I did that. And the repeat of, I am a great writer. I do know how to put words together. I can be poetic. I can write greeting cards. And all that repeat of reinforcement that has built so much of my self-identity. And if kids are not writing creatively, and they're just having AI do it, there's so much that they're missing out on that just is building their self-identity.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And if you don't mind, I would like to tell you about the triple crown of durability. And that has three essential parts. And one is, this is something we should strive for. Grab for the gold ring, try to win the triple crown. And so one is to have skills. And so skills can be self-care skills like knowing how to cook and that sort of thing. Eventually they're going to be robots. I don't know. I think we should still continue how to cook because it is a way to express your individuality and your creativity and exercise your brain. So that would be to have skills.
And survival. We need,
survival. No, yeah. Things can get unplugged. And that's another danger of today. All this messing around with, there's going to be more and more digital espionage. And so we do really have to know those basic skills as well. And, it's scary because I think to myself, I can't grow my own food. I can't, that takes forever and you need all it. Anyway, so you don't want to go down the rabbit hole. It's important to just know what you can know right now, know, basic safety measures, if at all possible, first aid and that kind of thing. And that's very important. But I think if you look at them, the children, skills for them are that reading, writing, arithmetic, and reasoning. So as parents, we have it down, but we have to make sure that they get it too. So that's important. The second one is to have genuine relationships. And with AI coming along, it's so easy to have synthetic relationships. And with children, it's especially confusing and can be very dangerous to allow a child to just jump into AI relationships as they can really easily on Snapchat because there is an AI friend built in right now. And that's something that parents have to be aware of. The only way you can get rid of it, as of a couple months ago, I haven't checked right now, is to pay Snapchat to give you a higher level of service so you can not have the AI friend there, which means that almost everybody has the AI friend. So anyway, that's another thing, is to model genuine relationships in your life, but also and value them, but also to model them in your family, to make sure you are connecting on a heart-to-heart basis and an eye-to-eye basis with your children, rather than, continuous partial attention where you're like, oh, yeah, and then get back to your phone. That is deadly for their self-esteem and their mental health. Oh my gosh. So as parents, we have to be responsible and not do that. You can see I'm getting passionate about it. It matters.
I want you to please, let's just pause right there, because that is part of the blindness that I'm talking about. That, I don't know if you experience this. I don't know a mom who hasn't, but when I was on the phone when my kids were little, they all of a sudden needed my attention right now. And it is so intrinsic in the child and their development to know that they have their mom's attention, they have their parents' attention, that they're being seen. So when you say that there is this, oh yeah, okay, I got you, and this lack of presence and attention, I really hope that our listeners can grasp how something so nuanced and nonchalant actually carries a really big impact.
Absolutely. I mean, a number of different authors, they understand that one of the biggest complaints of kids is I can't get my mom's full attention. I can't get my dad's eye, can't get his eye. And so that's one of the things that we have to understand as human beings, that machines, efficient machines go faster and faster and faster. How fast can the car go? How many copies can shoot out of the machine? That's how it's efficiency is measured in machines. But in human beings, efficiency is measured in being slow. You are efficient in relationships if you slow down and listen and focus.
I'm going to cry. That hit me right in my heart. Okay, I want you to stay on this for a minute. God, that's so good, Jenifer. Yes, that's potent. Wow.
Yeah, there's just a few things that parents could just grasp those. And then having perspective, like I'm on the other side. My kids are grown up and a couple of them have babies of their own. And I wish I could be sitting at the dinner table. Now I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Sitting with them at the dinner table chatting about our days. And you forget about when these kids are at your ankles and they're just clamoring for your attention, and you do kind of want to shoo them away. So it's hard to have that perspective of how special that time is.
Right. When my children were being difficult with bedtime, and my 12-year-old son for the longest time said, Mommy, lay with me, Mommy, lay with me. And I had all these to-dos to do. I had to clean up the kitchen, and I wanted to go to bed too. And I had a laundry to do, and I had work to finish, and I had all these to-dos to do. And I'm so grateful that I had the presence to say, this is but a moment in time. Just lay with him. It's but a moment in time, and you will crave this one day. You will remember this with yearning, and do not say, I wish I would have been more present with him. And I still do. I still have this, you know, craving to have been more present. And I was a very present mom, and yet I was going through divorce, and which is, I think I am just a microcosm of what other people are experiencing. Life is so full. I was in survival mode in a large respect of my children's baby years. And I'm so grateful for the digital pictures that I have, because they can bring me back into that moment. And my kids and I will sit on the couch and we'll just watch pictures and talk about all of that, which is a different experience with the gift of digital. I think I have 40,000 photos, and my oldest is 14. So, it helps me. It serves. But yes, that's so I've spoken with Howard Martin from Heart Math, who talks about the heart brain connection and tapping into the heart. And then my friend Genpo Roshi was on yesterday about mindfulness and really getting into the breath and slowing down. But hearing you say that way is that AI and digital world is all about pace. It's about keeping the pace and fast, fast, fast. But we thrive when we slow down. That is actually an asset of ours, because can we do a little sidestep right now, or do you want to finish your third pyramid? Because let's
No,
finish it, and then I want to do that sidestep.
Well, no, I have another point about this, the relationships part, having genuine relationships and modeling. Well, a bunch more. I've got other things to say, but I just wanted to talk about the pinch of generosity for a minute, which I write about in my book, How to Be a Durable Human. And it's something that parents have to understand. When you were with your son and he wanted you to hang out, you actually had to be generous, and it pinched a little bit. It's like, I don't really want to be here, but I am gonna go this. I'm going to take a piece out of myself. I'm going to stay here. And I compare it with if you have an old coat that you have and it's pretty cruddy, and you donate it to a charity. And gosh, that's being really generous. There's no pinch there. You don't like that coat. You're just getting rid of it. But generosity really does have a pinch. And it's almost like you almost have to feel the pinch and be like, this is the right thing for me. This is where I need to be right now. Kind of acknowledge there's a pinch, and you kind of just be there. for those
Oh
moments.
my God, that's good. That is so good. Oh, look at me. Oh, yes, I love that. You're so right. You're so right. Just the aspect of parenting is truly there is a sacrificial aspect of it. The presence is a sacrifice. The presence is, we talk about it and that our kids need it. It's important to their development. We don't, and parents are so, have so much going on. We're not talking about the the sacrifice that that treasure of presence is. I'm not going to do me right now. I'm going to focus on building and supporting and being with you. That's really good. Mm,
Yeah, look how
okay.
beautiful you are. You're feeling all your emotions. It's beautiful.
I know I'm so human. Okay. So the pinch of generosity. And then is that part of the second pillar?
Yeah, that's part of the second pillar. And the third, and we can talk about this more later, is just being curious. Being curious leads to creativity. It's creativity comes from being curious. And we as parents have to allow the curiosity of our children, starting as babies, starting the first day that they're born, is letting them explore the world in an analog way, second by second, right, one after the other, and using all their senses and just letting them go at their own pace, and to be watchful for what they're interested in. Because what we want to happen is we want our children to each express themselves. They're born with innate capacities and they're all different. And what we have to do is nurture that and let it bloom and not cut it short and not end it, not curtail it. Like, for instance, they are easily entertained by media, tablets, and all that stuff. It does mesmerize them, but they aren't doing that slow analog exploration and learning about their hands and learning about their whole bodies and what it feels like to be out in the air and who are these people around me. There's so much that they have to learn and understand. And we do them a big disservice if we want to distract them with, with devices that can just suck in their attention for hours at a time. And we're finding now through new research that it can be very detrimental to various aspects of their development to allow it to happen, even though it's so easy, and it's easy on us. And so that's that, again, getting back to this pinch of generosity thing, even when we're talking about curiosity, and having them express themselves, we have to generously allow them to explore.
Okay. So I feel like I'm sitting here as Oprah having like light bulb moment, like, oh my God, that was so good. So one of the things that I really saw when you were talking was the value, the necessity in building intimacy. And that what you're saying with all of this is, intimacy, into me, see. It's that craving to feel seen on a deep level. And with the pinch of generosity and the bigger picture of placement as a parent for the way shower of our children is to have a like I don't know the right word, like not a like a way shower, an energetics of I can see the bigger picture of the value of all of these things, of sacrificing my time for you for in your development, of creating intimacy in our moment, and that's the bond that will keep a child going back to the parent when life around them is happening. God, this is so good. This is really good. Okay. All right. So we have a triangle. Keep painting the picture. Here we go.
No, I mean, those are just the things to keep in mind. And you also should continue to follow your curiosity as an adult. Be interested in things, and to just make sure you don't stagnate, and make sure you're not always consuming. It's easy to consume constantly. There's
Yeah.
so much to look at on the internet just to keep up, and not only with the news, but socially and that sort of thing. But we have to allow some digestion time to digest and to be quiet and let it all kind of settle in to our consciousness and sometimes our long-term memory. If we keep like ingesting, we might not remember a lot of it. So it's a matter of don't just consume, but also produce, if at all possible.
Well, so you mentioned intuition in the beginning, and that was the sidestep I was
Oh,
putting on hold. And this
mhm.
is actually a perfect segue into that because with all of my training on my sacred gifts of intuition and clairvoyance and really I'm very open about the fact that I had out of body experiences as a little girl and I spent my life seeking to fit in and feel normal and I've I'm half a century old almost and I'm choosing to really own all of me without pause and that I will no longer reduce myself to make other people feel comfortable. And so in that journey of self-reclamation, I have heard time and time again from anybody that's a teacher, and it even says this in the Bible for anyone that is biblical, um, uh, that every gathering is to have a child present. And and the next step to this is that when I was in my training for all of them said as a prerequisite for learning how to use your sacred gifts, have the curiosity of a child. Childlike curiosity keeps you in a space of not out of your ego and into openness. It keeps you in expansion versus contraction. And so when you talk about the intuition that we have, as humans are all very capable of, but supremely underserved in how to tap into that or to listen to it. It's that curiosity that feeds the growth of intuition. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I, I I feel badly for children, especially that are consuming so much that they haven't experienced life. I think to have intuition, you actually have to have experiences because intuition draws from your experiences and it integrates the heart, as I'm sure you've learned in many settings. And so what we have to do is tap into our heart, not just be up in our eyes and our brain. And so that's what intuition is all about. And that parents today have the ability to hop on advice settings as much as like a bunch, Reddit and, what to expect when you're expecting. You just jump in any number of places and keep reading and reading and reading. But there should be an acknowledgement that you are the parent of this child and you know this child better than anybody, better than all these different advice areas. And that sometimes you've got it. You know what to do. You might have to set aside the phone and all the advice and be like, okay, I know her and she needs this right now. And that's your intuition. And just kind of have faith that you have it. I mean, faith is a weird thing, but it's like have faith that you're making the right decision for your child because it's based on it's coming from your heart and your brain. And you're saying, I think the best thing to do is this, and then do it. Not need permission from some other source.
I see that so much with I've shared before on these conversations that being a home birth mom, and I have so many moms come to me for advice and guidance, and I'll just say things like, well, have you asked yourself? And I get like this huge bright-eyed like I never thought to do that. And I think that's part of it is outsourced because we are going through a very big experience of giving birth and we outsource our knowing to a doctor. And that's the beginning of outsourcing our knowing. And then we get into a school system that we have to outsource our knowing because they're the educator. And so, what do parents do to really go back to that very real thing of mother's intuition, just as proof positive that we're all intuitive and we have this, but mothers have this unspoken knowing with their children, and how to use that as an entry point to growing their inner knowing, their intuition with themselves and the world around them.
Well, I think it does have something to do with making space in the day for their relationship with their child. And so I know everybody wants to take advantage of the child being quiet and occupied, but starting with at birth, it would be good if the mom were able to not take advantage of the feeding time, like breastfeeding time, to be on the phone and double checking and like catching up, but to actually be there for the moments to look at the baby and really, it's that sense of attachment that's building in the mom too, as well as the baby. And so I think it's important to have those quiet times and slow down. Again, it's the slowing down um, process of sitting there and knowing this is going to take a few minutes to sit here with my toddler and try to work out this puzzle. But then to take a deep breath and say, whoa, this is beautiful. Look at this. Look at how he's putting the pieces together and understanding, and even putting rings on one of those posts where they put them on there, is to really be amazed by their progress and to just savor those moments. So I think it has to do with time and getting to know the child and getting to love the child. And then I think that leads to having that self-confidence to trust your intuition, because you do know your child very well and you've got a special bond, I mean, totally unique bond as parent and child. And so that's just one aspect, is leaving time for the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to a mom the other day who speaks about presence, bringing presence to parenting. And she was sharing how it was time for bed. She has twin boys, and it was time for bed. And instead of saying, let's go do bedtime, they just sat on the couch for a little bit and talked. And she was sharing that it was a pinpoint moment of stepping out of routine to just be. And that gift of just being and letting everything be okay in the moment, and what her kids just it wasn't the words, it wasn't the conversation or the whatever there, it wasn't anything, it wasn't the talking, it was the being that was so profound to her, that had this deep resonance. And I don't think we as a society put enough merit and weight on the value of just being. Like we see that old couples can sit together in silence and just be together, and we're actually kind of losing that because they want to now be together with the phone, and it's a different kind of being in silence. Like this is not being in the comfortable silence.
Right, right. And research is showing that, let's say the mom and the child have to be apart all day. So the child's in school and then after school program and the parent is working full time. Then they come together in the evening. Those moments that they share are really powerful. It's kind of like it makes everything okay to have the parents' full attention for a period of time. And I mean, even if you're cooking dinner and getting dinner together, if the child is, rather than, I mean, if the child is just sitting there or maybe helping, or you're both there, those are valuable moments. Those are times that you're together, you're in the same bubble, you're experiencing the same thing. And that's what we also have to keep in mind is, parents, are we all separated? Are we in three different corners of the room on our different devices? We're on three separate bubbles. They're not together. And so it's important to also be conscious of experiencing the same thing with your children at the same time. And it's silly to have to say it out loud but it is something that we have to be conscious of, because it's so easy to have them sitting in the corner and you scrolling through. Even if you're like stirring a pot, you could be still, trying to scroll through and catch up, and you're in your two separate corners, and the whole evening it could go by. And especially if somebody's distracted during dinner, you're not talking then either. So I think that's an element of being conscious of your attention when you're with your child.
Do you think that because we're connection humans, we're connection at our core, we're connection focused, do you feel that with all the digital creep that we've got going on, that there is a craving for connection and people just don't know how to access it?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think even kids falling deeply in love with AI and stuff like that is maybe a symptom of the fact that they don't have fulfilling relationships with human beings. So I probably to get a kid off AI, I haven't really seen a lot of research on this because it's so new. But to weed them off is probably you have to substitute something really strong on the other side, which would be an intense human relationship of some sort or some sort of activity to kind of get them out of there. Because, but I bet there's research going on about that too right now. But yeah, I think there's a human basic human need for connection and relationships.
We're just not tending to. So, kids with AI relationships. I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were saying that they felt that um, uh, these humanoid bots, will replace physical relationships, and that because the AI technology can feed into your needs and your psychology and give you the answer that you prefer, but based on your body temperature and your eye movement and all these things that are happening, that they can really start to speak to you in a way that is contrived and gets you your heart, gets you feeling heart emotions towards this thing, which is all, digitally manufactured. Do you think we're heading that way?
Sure, we have a risk of heading that way. We're heading that way. And so that's why what you're doing with this summit is trying to help parents become more conscious of themselves in relation to technology. And that once a child is born, that's when you can start having them understanding about genuine relationships. You have to model them and you have to give them that heart to heart connection called attachment. We never had to think about attachment till now. It would just happen. We didn't have all these distractions. And now we have to understand, are we allowing attachment to happen? Am I too distracted to actually attach to my child? And we have to really think of that because we have these external forces on us now. And yeah, I think we have to help them understand genuine human relationships as long as we can. And even into middle school and high school, that people talk about digital literacy around AI. And so it's instilling in kids the knowledge that these are synthetic relationships. And yes, you're vulnerable to what they're doing and doing the best you can. I mean, it's just like drugs, trying to teach them about, we don't take drugs when we feel well. We have to respect what we ingest into our bodies, and you have to respect what you ingest in your mind just as much in a lot of different ways. AI is one of them. So we just have to do what we can to give them perspective on what they are going to run into.
What do you say? Is it is what is Are there gradients of being a durable human? Is it that if you do these things, yes, you're stepping into being more durable and being more of the slowed down presence, curious, intuitive, incredibly irreplaceable, incredibly dynamic self? Are there gradients of that engagement of human durability that you see?
Gradients. Yeah, I mean, people engage more or less with technology. Like I watch my youngest son, how he engages in and out of technology as he's raising his 11-week-old now. And I'm keeping an eye on him because he's the reason I got into the whole durable human thing, is because I noticed when different even or desktop computers had really interesting games and things that he could play. And then mobile devices came along and I was noticing that I was being more separate from him. I didn't like it at all and I didn't understand it. So intuitively, I'm like, something's wrong with this. And it took at least 5-10 years for the research to come out and saying, you are distracted, he's distracted, you're in two different worlds. He's being overtaken. He didn't get into social media for a while but they can become overtaken by persuasive design and that sort of thing. But at the beginning, it was just intuition. And so now I'm watching this kid who's had me as his mom for 31 years. And I know, like yesterday, he said, Mom, I don't know if this is going to pass the sniff test with you or the durable human. He said, but I got this cactus thing, and we can talk into the cactus and sing a little song, and the cactus will sing back. And he told me, and I had to be really careful in how I answered him. It's the hard part about trying to hold the judgment back. And it's hard. It's really hard. And so I asked him a few more questions about the cactus. And then I ended up saying, well, I hope you sing as much to the baby as you sing to the cactus. And that was my little, anyway, so I don't know how that went down, but I can see him managing it. And I think he's doing great. And so I think there's an element of judgment and remembering how awesome you are. Your little song to the baby is so valuable to them. And just having them smile at you and you smile back, just valuing that and not belittling it and not, putting into some bassinet that you can just vibrate with the mobile app on your phone, to get them slowed down and quiet down. So I
Well,
don't
there's a
know.
lot of research that speaks to the voice of the parent when the babies first come out, because they hear that frequency when they're in utero, especially the voice of the mother. And there is a grounding that happens for the children. I sang songs to my kids in utero that I sang to them out as just a way to support them when they were feeling frenetic out of their little warm, womb that was so, safe, and it was all, like a snuggly blanket all the time. And then they come out and they're not in that snuggly blanket, and there's environment, and you chill, you feel cold, so they've got a lot, and that's why we were talking about this, how fast the brain grows in the first 2 years of life, because there's so much happening. And this is what I support, that contemplation, because we have games and toys for kids now that are so automated and battery driven. And I had a rule that I wouldn't buy toys that required batteries, because that was not where I was. First of all, they drive me nuts. I mean, you hear, I'm like, how can that not drive a little baby's circuitry nuts with all the
Sure.
dinging and belling but to also just have that sing to the baby, and that resonance, that vocal resonance that the baby's receiving, as a deeper level of connection than having, the cactus sing. And I think we miss that. I think we miss that connection, that it's an override, it's an outsourcing once again.
Yeah. And so there's beautiful research showing resonance between the mom's brain and the baby as they're talking, and the baby just sort of the same parts of the brain light up. It's a really beautiful thing. And so I do think there's people need more education on brain development, especially in the early years, and also respect for the baby's brain and respect for themselves. I mean, there's something called the video deficit. And this is also research that shows that kids cannot learn language very well from a screen, hardly at all. They can learn the ABCs maybe and some of those colors and things like that, but they can't learn conversation and sentences and that sort of thing, the way full language development. But they can from people. They can from the face, that always have. That's our human ability. And so parents need to know, you got it. You have what they need right now. Let them look at you. Let them study your face. They're little students and sponges. And they're blah, blah, they make their funny sounds. You keep talking back to them, even though they're not making any words yet. They will respond, especially, and that's the other thing about slowing down. You can be a motor mouth and just keep talking at them, but you actually have to talk and then give them like 10 seconds. It takes that long sometimes for them to acknowledge what you said and then come out with a little sound. And so we just have to understand our power. They're all the babies need. And it's really beautiful when you think about it. And that's what we need to do more of, is think about it.
Yeah. What was the moment? I mean, you touched on it a little bit with your son, that was really like, you something's not right, and then you followed through with it. Was that the birth of Durable Human?
Absolutely was. Because I use this. I wrote the Durable Human Manifesto in 2013, and I said I would pass him by and I would rub his shoulders with my thumbs. It would just like go by, wouldn't not necessarily any words. And I realized that I was using my time with my thumbs. I was starting to be on a device and I was noticing I wasn't, giving him the little shoulder massage like I used to. And I was like, I don't like this. He didn't want to go outside. He didn't want to go out and play like my other two. And I knew that he was being drawn in by Pajama Sam. And I didn't like it. And I was like, I resent Pajama Sam. I don't like what's happening here. But it was so new, I couldn't put any words to it. So I decided, it was 2 years after the iPhone came out. I said, I'm going to create this durable human. I'm a writer, journalist. I can make this platform. And so I just sort of launched it and started observing what has happened, what is happening to us. And that's why, to me, we've made a huge leap between the alt brains of Google and GPS to AI. It's a really big deal. So I'm really glad that you invited me to talk about it.
Let's talk about like turning this huge ship around and the resilience of the human, which is part of our beauty, and that we can rewire our brains and we have neuroplasticity. And yeah, some things are hardwired, but even Andy Doan spoke about, and actually Chris Rowan talked about digital autism, and that they have found that when you take screens away from, well, number one, kids on screens show autistic symptoms, digital autism. And then number two, kids that have been diagnosed with autism take their screens away and their symptoms decrease. So that's the neuroplasticity. That's the ability of us to pivot. What do you see with really engaging a durable human approach in turning this ship around?
Well, I have this thing called the Durable Family Pledge that people can get who watch your event here, and families can adopt simple habits to be able to turn the ship around more. In other words, if they want to pay attention to each other more at meals, they can agree as a family to do a new habit for 4 weeks. And so they would sit down, have a family meeting with people's organs put aside. Now I've said it. I've never really said it publicly that I called phones digital organs or dorgans. So put the dorgans aside and have the family
Another
meeting.
one. Boy, you're full of them.
I know, ask my kids. They'll be like rolling their eyes. But that way you can, it's becomes a general agreement that you're going to put your devices aside during dinner and really just lean in on your elbows and eat your food and talk to each other. And I think it's really important for parents. First of all, you're modeling good relationship with the kids, genuine relationships. But besides that, you as a parent are observing, you're watching, because you have intuition and you can see them. And if you ask a question and there's a microsecond of a pause, and then they answer, and then they look a little, if you aren't looking up, if you've got continuous partial attention and you're doing this, and you're like, yeah, you will miss it, guaranteed. And so in this way, you can be observant and watching for those nuances and maybe pick up that there's something really bad going down at school or on social media or something. And then hopefully you can gently probe and just ask questions and be curious and see how they are. But it's very powerful to be able to have a meal with your family members so many different ways. So that's just one habit that families can take just to get control.
I say sitting down together and having a meal and going to and from sports together in the car. I get more out of my kids because I have a no technology rule when I'm supporting them in their needs. And so let's be in community. Let's not let you outsource your entertainment. So one of the things that I say is what you're observing is back to the majesty of the human experience is the micro nuances. And that's so critical for people to really understand is that, when you see your child, my 14-year-old was just super cantankerous. He was so whoa. And finally went to him and I was like, like what's going on here, love? This is just not who you are. What's going on? And nothing, I'm fine. Nothing, I'm fine. And
Yeah.
it took a day. It took a full day of being just compassionate and saying, when he would be yucky, not being like go to your room or blah blah blah. I wasn't any of that. I was just, whoa, I see you. I'm here. And a day later, he came to me and he started crying. And he just really started crying and he let it out. That was a moment that was a buildup of many micro moments that he felt safe enough as a 14-year-old boy to come sit with me and just cry and be present. And he's my 14-year-old. I'm a single mom, and I really work with him because he feels like he has to be the man of the house, and I'm focused on him being the boy. Be a child, be a child. And he's loves does it out of protection for me, and it's our bond is beautiful. But that's the thing, it's that when a child needs you, we as parents have to be setting the stage for quite some time. It's not in that moment that we get called upon, it's the stage setting that is all the moments before, when we've taught them and demonstrated to them that they can trust us and they can bring their nitty gritty. And we're not going to say, how dare you, or what a stupid choice, or what the hell were you thinking? We're not going to go there, because we have so much time in establishing the value of that relationship. That's so necessary. And I feel as though a lot of parents are really, unfortunately, missing out on that. I had a teacher that told me, he's like, he's a male teacher. And he said, the number of kids that come to me and tell me things that their parents would never talk to them about, we're missing out. We're completely outsourcing that. So
Yeah, it's hard because we don't have the words. Yeah, but there are some good resources coming out. Something just came out, how to talk to your child about porn. I mean, that's the thing that I'm guilty of not wanting to talk about any of that stuff. And that book gives you the ability it gives you words to be able to speak about it, even if you have to like study the night before and sort of try to memorize what they are, to try to break through to talk to your child about that. That could be one of the things that's bothering them. You don't know.
right.
So
Well, yeah, well, I've got three boys, so and I do that talking. I am that person that talks about that stuff. So
that's
yeah,
fantastic. Great.
but
It's
one
really
of the things I do say, Jenifer, is I say, let's have the courage to stay in the conversation.
good. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I promise you, what I say is, I promise you, because when I first started talking about their bodies and stuff, la, 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 and I was like, wait, I promise you, if you have the courage to stay in this conversation with me, we will become stronger on the other side.
I love that. That's really so important. So important. And just thinking about the family meetings, I wish I brought my talking stick with me. But in order to maintain order in conversations, maybe not that particular one, but if you have a family meeting, is to have something to hold on to, like the indigenous people did in the Pacific Northwest. I think that's one of the places they did. They would sit around, and whoever was speaking was holding the talking stick, and they're the only ones who could speak. Everyone had to listen attentively and respectfully. And when that person would finish, they would hand the stick to somebody else. And so we need to kind of do that in our minds when the child is talking, to try not to jump in and correct them, tell them they're wrong, or do anything like that. Is to kind of just let it out. And that, again, it's this slowing down thing and being here, be there now, which is like to listen and zip it for a couple of minutes.
That's so good. That's the Senga. And that's so valuable. Um, yeah, any other pointers that you have for parents and really bringing the durability back into the human experience?
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of families are trying to be careful for their children's physical health, about, well, maybe their own physical health, that they make sure they go to the gym. But you got to make sure that the kids actually have as much physical activity as possible. Try to bring back some sort of neighborhood camaraderie with, if there's anybody in the neighborhood, by making your backyard or your side yard or somewhere, going to the park with kids. You don't have to have your own yard. You just go to the park and let them run around. It's really important I want to tell you one little thing, which is really interesting. I learned from Richard Louv, who wrote Last Child in the Woods, that I'd recommend everybody reads. Talks about the nature deficit disorder, which is that children, they they do not they don't bloom around if they don't have nature. They need nature to keep them vital, and that means going outside and playing. And one thing is that children need to experience imagination. And at the park, it may take a half an hour for a child to descend into full imagination mode. You know, when they're a pirate on top of the climbing gym or something like that. It takes a half an hour.
Hmm.
And so if we go to the park, we shouldn't be doing this
Mm-hmm.
because they need time. Again, is making that commitment when you go to the park, stay a while, you know, an hour and a half. And try as hard as you can to be present, because I know, again, this is where people get on their phones. And as somebody who writes about technology and babies and childhood, kids can get hurt that way. You're not paying attention. They fall down, you overreact. You have no idea how they were hurt. And it leads to a lot of confusion about what happened and who's to blame and all that stuff. So ideally, we should be engaged in watching their play. And, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Now, it may be you could get creative in your neighborhood and have 3 families, and each of you could alternate and go to take them to the playground on different days. And then the day you're with them, you have to really pay attention. And then maybe the day you're not with them, catch up on some things. So there are ways to be creative.
You know, when you talk about that, what came into mind was that, being an adult in relationships, and one of the ways that we typically feel most connected to another person is when they take the time to study us and to know us and to really deeply see us. That's what, again, intimacy is. And we don't really have that language towards studying our children and that level of intimacy that's so important to really watch our children, to see, even their nuances and mannerisms, and to really just take the time while they're playing to be of a study of them, and how do they interact, and how do they talk, and how do they bump up against their playmates and then go into play and out of play. And what is the study that you are getting an understanding, which builds the intuition.
Yep. Yep. That's right. I was just thinking about in early childhood, very early childhood, if you've got Dr. Doan and Chris Rowan talking about virtual autism, that there's actually a scientist in Australia who's doing he's trying to get ahead of babies developing autistic like symptoms. And they do it by training the parents to read the children, to
Wow.
really watch them carefully and understand how to communicate with them and how to notice their little emotions and notice how to interact with them. And this guy has noticed, and his team has noticed, that babies that have like hints that maybe they're autistic like symptoms, when they train the parents to be really attentive and to understand their baby's needs and their signs, then the babies, none of them ever develop any of those symptoms, because parents are engaging with them. They're not disengaging, and they're not handing them a device, which gets them disengaged. So it's really interesting research.
Wow, that's incredible. I love that. You have just so many. This has been a great conversation. Is there anything, I know you have so much to share. Is there anything that you would really love to share with our listeners about having the courage and the resilience and the love for self to return more fully into focusing on their humaning, their human durability?
Uh, well, just to be aware of how they interact with technology, and that good old fashioned books, paper books, are very powerful for your brain and also for you to get some distance from technology. And that when you read fiction, this is other new research, it really engages various parts of your brain because you're thinking about the plot, as opposed to nonfiction, which is what I usually read. because I'm trying to learn more stuff, that fiction really exercises your brain. And it also is a calming mechanism for you. And it probably helps you sleep better and all sorts of things. So I don't know, just be aware of yourself as a human being and how you need to do you need to do unplugged things. Taking a walk, being mindful, slowing yourself down, and that sort of thing is really important. But I also wanted to make you aware of a couple of, I think we have to become advocates for our kids around technology as well. And there's a group called Fair Play, and they have part called the Screen Time Action Network. And they've come out with a couple of really good resources for parents to talk to schools about the use of technology in the classroom and the hallways, because there's a lot of surveillance technology too, but mostly the ed tech in the classroom, and how to just engage with the school. There's an early childhood screen aware action kit where you start in preschool and be like, can you tell me if you use technology in my child's preschool class? And if they say yes, you ask them, engage and say, why do you use it? And, is it possible not to use it? Because it's those times in preschool where kids are learning about genuine relationships and they're learning social intelligence. And so it's not a thing that should be given as a break or even as a rainy day thing. They can go into the meeting room, the hall, and play with balls and stuff like that. So people are afraid to step in there and talk to the administration about that. Well, there's some words in this resource, and then there's another one called this Screens and Learning Action Kit. That's more robust, and it tells you exactly who to talk to in the administration, what questions to ask, and maybe even starting a committee of vetting the technology that's used in the classroom to prove that it's useful and that to prove that it is better than the teacher sitting there with paper and pen and them figuring stuff on a piece of paper, whatever it is. There's just endless numbers of opportunities for using paper resources and people using their hands to write stuff down, which has been proven to connect better with the brain than using a keyboard. So I think it's time for parents to be less accepting of what's going on in the schools and more inquisitive about what's being used and is it proven to be effective. And a lot of ed tech tools are proven to be engaging, but not necessarily effective. And if you've noticed, there's a real drop off in academic performance over the last 10, 15 years. And that's when a lot of ed tech has come into the classroom. So all ed tech is not created equal. I'm sure there's some products that are very helpful in certain circumstances, but it's not helpful in all circumstances. And so it's important to have a knowledge of what's going on in your child's classroom if you can. And these resources are really helpful.
Yeah. So important. That was actually a big reason that was my mother's intuition, something's not right. My kids, I mean, besides just not remembering basic functioning, like step 1, step 2, step 3 for the morning, I had to remind them, but also they had no handwriting. I mean, they just couldn't write pen to paper because they were keyboarding from such a young age. And I felt like you can't go through life with a doctor's, handwriting. You need to have legible handwriting. You need to know how to read a story and say, this is the beginning, the middle, and the end. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. This is the synopsis. They just didn't have dynamic formatting around their intake. It was, they call them rubrics and these little digital sticky notes, and they'd have to fill the story of the book in this little the plot in a digital sticky note, and then the lead character in a digital sticky note. I was like, what the heck is this? This is not dynamic thinking. This is just automating a response to an activity to prove that you did it. So yeah, I feel, but my choice, so many parents say to me, I couldn't do what you do. You have the courage to homeschool yours. I just couldn't do what you do. And it's not, for me, it has not been an easy decision. It's come with a lot of challenges, but you know what? We're bumping up against each other and we're finding our way. And, that's really great. You're
More
fabulous. I would love to support you and how people can find you. So, and can we get that handout for our audience?
Yep. Absolutely. I will send it to you if I haven't already done that. So I will definitely, and sure, my How to Be a Durable Human in the Manifesto are on Amazon, and they can find me at durablehuman.com. It's
Wonderful.
pretty easy to do. And yep, so I'm focusing a lot on early childhood now and trying to get the word out about the new research that is showing that um, unthinking use of digital devices under age 2 can really affect the child's development in the long term. And especially if they develop those really strange behavioral mannerisms, um, um, to understand that they may be related to excessive, watching of tablets or whatever it is, that there are more and more research showing a connection between changes in behavior that are unexpected, and not in keeping with the usual progression of development. And either the baby watching TV, having TV on all day on the wall, which is quite distracting and reduces the amount of chatter in the household, or the parents just being, it's called technoference. And so I think parents, it's time. We've had these mobile devices for quite a while now, and we have to acknowledge that it does affect our human nature to have these synthetic objects around, and to be very, very careful with your child's brain development around these things. So yeah, that's my focus at the moment.
Okay, really quickly, because you just said this. So that was really great. If we have TV on in the house, we are not doing the languaging. We're just in the So what's the data behind that? Because I've been in more homes where people just keep the TV on and I don't get it, but people say or to sleep, they need the noise to fall asleep. I don't get it, but is it really a seismic problem?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of language delay now in preschool, and people use the TVs are literally almost like a picture on the wall, right? And so it's kind of like having this din filling up the sound in the household, and it does maybe it makes it feel less quiet in the household. But the kids are the research shows that there's a number of harms, but one is the kids are distracted from their play. You can't help it. You've seen kids when they, every shot change, they're, drawn to it, and every special sound, they're drawn to it. So they're not able to concentrate on their play. So number one, that's not good. And number two, absolutely, more and more studies are showing that they're supposed to have at least 40 conversational times an hour. And when the TV is on, neither the child nor the caregiver are saying anything. They're sort of deferring to whatever noise is coming out of the TV. And so these children are not hearing words, and they're not having practice talking. Of course, when they get to preschool, they're not going to be very verbal. So this is something we can have a direct impact on if we're just more conscious of it.
Wow. Well, and also think about a child that doesn't talk. Parents start talking for the child. So they're not getting that experience of following through on a talk because, you know, they their thought is overridden by a directive from someone potentially. I mean, you're in it way more than I am, but there's the delayed in the identification of self, and I would like to make that decision, and then I would like to see what the results are in little people. That's really astonishing. What would you say are the numbers? Because I have really, it bothers me when I see a child with a tablet. It really bothers me. To me, I interpret it as a form of abuse, and I know that's not where the parent is, but I know the data on enough. I don't know the stuff that you have, but I know enough data for it to break my heart. What are the numbers, or what's coming out as far as how many kids, babies, are getting screens at under 2?
Yeah. Um, and that's the real problem, is giving the child the powerful device to hold in their own hands. I think that's really where the parents have to do not allow the child to run the device. It's too powerful. It's too persuasive over the child's attention. And so, yeah, in the UK, I mean, the numbers are, oh man, I wish I could look it up right now. But uh, babies 2 to 4, like at least a third of them have their own tablet. And that's not good, because then you have the Canadian research up here saying a child that gets a tablet that early becomes angrier as, first of all, they use it more as they get older. So they approach 4 and 5, they're using it more, and their anger management gets worse. And so, let alone all the other functions that it's affecting, they're not able to manage their emotions very well. And so they don't learn how to calm themselves down, and they sort of have to use the technology. And of course, you can see right there, it becomes a crutch. And you start having external forces needed to calm a child, calm you down in your heart. Not good, not good at all. And so giving a child a device like that is a big mistake. The parents really should manage whatever they see. And under 2, it's just not a good idea. And that's backed up by Singapore, Ireland. France says no under age 3. The American Academy of Pediatrics quibbles between 18 months and 2 years, but they also say under 2 years is a bad idea, except for video calls with loved ones. So it's become serious, and parents really need to know about it in order to make the best decisions at those very early months. Those first 2 or 3 years are super important for brain development. It all happens from 0 to 1, and language development happens in there too. And that's why you need to keep these conversations going at home. That means turn the TV off, and definitely turn it off when nobody's watching, because that's because everybody will shut up and the kid will get distracted, and not a good combo.
Knowing what you know now and all the data that you have, is there anything that you would have done differently as a parent?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure. I mean, my son, we finally gave him, could it be that it was a flip phone? I mean, he wrote me essays in 8th grade saying, my social life is dead. I have a dead social life. And he was writing me these things about how, give me a phone, let me have a phone. And then when he finally got a phone, I swear to God, it was a flip phone. But anyway, right away, as somehow I was able to see what the content of the phone, and there were pictures of people without clothes on in there, girls from the other school. And you know what? I didn't say a word to him. I just took the phone away. That was so bad, and I really feel terrible about it. So yeah, I've made some really bad mistakes, and I'm really glad to hear that you're holding your tongue and trying to listen and not just jump in and be a radical, brain. I was a brainstem. I operated from the brainstem level. That's not responsible. And so I'm sorry to my son, and I'm sorry I did that, but that's one way I would do it differently. And yeah, I guess I would have acknowledged sooner that he needed to go outside a little more, and I would have to work harder at that. But ultimately, it worked out great. I mean, I did sort of make up for it, because I used to go on a writer's retreat with my writer friend, and we would bring our 2 sons with us to the retreat. It would happen to be in Florida, and that we would have them make our food, make dinner. So we would give them a budget, and then they would figure out what the meals were and go to the grocery store and buy it with their money. And they would come back and they would cook it, and they would ride a bike alone to get to the grocery store. It wasn't very unsafe. It was pretty safe to do it. But my son really learned some really good skills by doing that. So I feel like, I don't know, you do your best as a parent.
There is no perfect, really, this was the impetus for me doing all of this, was because I just felt like a hypocrite in my own home. And I'm so much for the cultivation of humaning and being good, heart-centered, what's your contribution to society, and how do you fulfill your purpose, mom? And I bring so much consciousness. And my son, I just was watching this, like, more and more tech time, and lying and deceit and hiding. And I would put it away, and they would, hide it, and they would come find it and sneak it. And they were up all night with it when I'm sleeping, thinking they're sleeping. And I agree with you. I gave my now 14-year-old a phone for all 3 of them because of the divorce situation. And I so wish that I had the fortitude to maybe get like a Gab phone or something that's extremely limited, that would just be nothing more than a communication tool. I have tremendous sadness over that choice that I made.
Well, try
And
not to, because Gab
well,
phones didn't exist then.
thank you, darling. Thank you.
Yes, it's
Thank you,
true.
darling. I appreciate that. And here's the thing. If I were to go to a Gab phone now, I mean, that's a big battle that I'm facing, right? Like I have a friend whose daughter is really hounding him for Snapchat, and it's aggressive. The promotion for Snapchat, and kids are
Oh,
very clever. They'll make stories, but I just keep saying, if you're asking my advice and everything I know, it's a no, because they're just exposed to in the mindless, as Richard Fried says, persuasive design. It's a real thing. Yeah.
definitely.
You're
Well,
amazing. I'm excited to keep in touch. I mean, we've got a lot to do together, and I'm really grateful for your time and your dedication to the babies. It makes me cry. We need you. We so need you. We really, really need you. So thank you.
thank you very much, and give yourself some grace.
Amen, sister. We all need it.
Acknowledge the good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Bye bye.